Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Martin Kove, and I'm hanging out with Galaxy in his dojo, and we're having a ball because he believes that mercy is for the weak here and on the streets. Listen to our show on Comic-Con Radio.
You lose concentration of fighting your dead meat. Yes, Sensei. What? Yes, Sensei. Get up. Give me 60 push-ups on your knuckles. Come back. Hey! Hey! Brown, Robertson, on guard. Hey! Point, round kick. What are you looking at? Finish him. Put it up. Return. Prepare. Hey! We do not train to be merciful here. Mercy is for the weak. Here, on the street, in competition, a man confronts you, he is the enemy. An enemy deserves no mercy. What is the problem, Mr. Lawrence? Class, we have visitors. Fall in behind me. Hey! You're a pushy little bastard, ain't you? But I like that.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Galaxy signing in for Comic-Con Radio. Coverage of pop culture events from around the globe. Amazing interviews with celebrities. Daily recaps and reviews of popular television. Movie reviews. Everything Comic-Con and fandom from around the globe. Comic-Con Radio. Get ready to enter our universe. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Galaxy for a very amazing interview, show, whatever you want to call it. Today is wonderful. It's a sunny day, a great, wonderful time. I have a man on the show today that I have been geeking about since my childhood, and you all are going to get to geek over him this whole time on the show today. Today we have Martin Kove on Comic-Con Radio. Martin, how are you, sir?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
Thank you for coming on. I am great. You are one of those people that when I look at, I remember such a nostalgic time in my life. So you are very welcome today.
Good. Yeah, it's fun to be on these shows. And now is an interesting time to do a talk show. I haven't done any interviews for a while because there's just so little to talk about. We're waiting for Cobra Kai to drop, and we have so little information about that, which is what everybody wants to know. It might be on a different network. And we're waiting what network that'll be. And we're all waiting to get the date because the show's been wrapped up for like 3 months. But it's an ideal for the time to drop a new TV show, especially one that's highly anticipated.
Oh, absolutely. The show's amazing, but I want to talk about you because you are more than Cobra Kai. You are more than Karate Kid. You're Martin Kove. You are a very cool dude. I'm happy that I'm the first interview in a while. Comic-Con Radio is about every genre out there in the universe. Droves of fans in the universe and listeners really, really, really dig everything that you're about because not everybody knows, or they do know that you were in Rambo and you're in, Bare Knuckle and you're in all 3 Karate Kid movies, even though after the first one, the parking lot situation, there's so much that's going on. Was Karate Kid one of your biggest movies at the time, or was it Rambo?
Well, I did them back to back, and I was doing a TV show called Cagney and Lacey.
Yes.
And that was really a very classy show. We were doing that for about 6 years. And I was able to just, go off and do different projects. I think one of the interesting projects I did was an action picture called Steel Justice that I started. And that was fun because it was in a sense, my first romantic lead, and yet it was an action picture, and it was very enjoyable to do. But I would say, that I guess, Karate Kid was really made so much noise, and we never knew it would be as successful as it was. And Rambo, I remember reading Rambo in my dressing room in Cagney and Lacey on the set there, and it was sent to me. It was 85 pages of nothing but mayhem, and I realized that this movie would probably make, equal to Karate Kid, which at that time had grossed, $100 million. And this was 1984. And I said, wow, this is really interesting. What a follow-up. And I said, I better do it. And, it holds up today. I think they're both memorable for different reasons to society, to kids, to people of that age, to, adults today. They have different meanings, but they both hold up, and it's really my pleasure to be part of both of them,
Well, I know you were in Cagney and Lacey, which was an amazing TV show. If the fans and listeners that don't know about it, look it up. Some of you do. Our demographics is that age as well. But Cagney and Lacey, amazing. Now, Karate Kid, when you were on it, after that, did that change things for you? Were you known as Sensei after that? Or did everybody look at you like this martial arts master? Because do you have actual martial arts training? I know you do, but I want the listeners to hear that.
Yes, my introduction into karate was we were going to do a movie called The Lion of Ireland, which was a book written by Morgan Llewellyn. And this was a book about the Vikings, about Brian Boru, who unified all the tribes in Ireland to fight against the Vikings, I guess about 1080. And it was a fascinating book, and we were all training, and I was to be the Viking adversary. And we were working out with Shion Takaboda in his dojo. And Shion Takaboda trained the police academy. He's been in a multitude of movies, from Killer Elite to Wild West to anything. He's a brilliant Shion. He's a wonderful, wonderful sensei. And I was working with him, and we were using plywood axes because my character was an axeman. And the style was, a lot of the style, was right out of Conan. I mean, it was the first time that people would start doing movies instead of wielding an axe or a sword like in the old Viking picture with from 1957 with Kirk Douglas. We were going to do a style. We were going to do, a style of Taekwondo. It was all going to be Kendo moves, and it was very rich and very much involved in learning the foundation of karate. So I had to work out, every other day. And then, unfortunately, the tax laws changed in England, and they lost the movie. They couldn't make the movie. And a month later, I had the audition for, this film called Karate Kid, and I didn't know what to expect. To me, it was just another heavy. That character was so well structured by, Robert Mark Kamen and the writer, and I think the star of that movie was the writer. I really do. I believe we all would not be in the position we're in, Ralph or Billy or myself, if it had not been so articulately and meticulously written. Because like in Cobra Kai, our show is terrific because the writing is so good. Our show is about us 30 years later, but if the writing wasn't on the money, it wouldn't work. People wouldn't love Cobra Kai. So it's really interesting. Yes, to answer your question, I became, the sensei and, the person to look up to and all. But not until later on that I really, start studying and going to the dojo and working out, so that you get to do a lot of black belt moves in movies, even though you haven't studied as much as you should have as a black belt. And I've got honorary black belts and regular black belts from different styles. But the honor of it all is the discipline and the people you meet and the devotion they have to karate and the devotion they have to taekwondo and Shotokan. And, I'm a black belt in Okinawa Te. And, it's just fascinating to be considered that. But God knows there are so many people out there who are further down the line that could make Sensei Kreese just crawl,
Yeah, but Sensei Kreese is a badass. Come on.
Yeah. Well, Sensei Kreese is a badass. And sometimes that character comes out. It just comes out. You're in that character for so long, and it's a psychological deal where I truly understand what kind of happened to Heath Ledger, and what happens to certain people. And you get so involved in the character that sometimes in your private life, it comes up. And I do believe that it comes up for me, and I've got to bring myself right down again, because, I cry at supermarket openings, you know what I mean? But the bottom line is John Kreese comes out at certain times, and you've got to control
it. It's all over.
Yeah, it does. You got to be careful. You got to really be careful, but it's great. And, the respect I get is enormous. And I don't take it for granted at all. And I'm quite humble about it because the people out there just love to hate John Kreese and hate to love John Kreese.
Oh, yeah. There's that double-edged sort of love to hate and hate to love. So with all that, Martin, strike first, strike hard, no mercy. What does that mean to you as Martin Kove, not as John Kreese?
Strike first means, as an actor, we just bring it back into meaning two things. As an actor, having tenacity and talent and always being honest with your feelings. That's strike first, strike hard, no mercy. And really, striking first is doing the work as an actor and maintaining a level of integrity in your private life. Strike hard is maintaining that forever. It's using it and being intelligent enough to find a place for your hard work. When you get a part, you really do your homework. You really work things out with background stories, and you work harder than you would. I remember at the beginning of my career, I don't think I took it all that seriously and didn't do the homework the way I should have. I didn't go to class the way I should have, and that to me is what I tell every actor. You just do as many plays as you can. And that is what parallels strike first, strike hard, no mercy. There's no mercy on the work because the work is endless, just like in the dojo. It's endless to be a perfectionist. It's endless. And strike first is make sure you do the basics and you develop them, whether it's karate or whether it's going to class and becoming an actor, a musician, or whatever. And strike hard is just, making your mark and being tenacious and always never letting yourself down. Never get down, because those people that succeed are those that don't take no for an answer, whether it's in the tournament, which what I tell my kids, or it's basically in a concert hall in New York City. You just go for it, and you just milk your talent, whatever it may be, and keep the discipline in order to maintain all kinds of practice and all kinds of perfection. And there's no way that you wouldn't succeed. It's impossible not to succeed.
Look at that inspiration. That is the true sensei in you. I know these days, Martin, we have the corona thing going on and all these shelter in place and all that. Recently, you did something to motivate everyone and to keep up the great vibes. You created Cobra Kai Challenge. What do you have to do? What is it about?
The Cobra Kai Challenge, it's interesting because it's really just, people keep asking us and wanting to know about what's happening with the show. And the challenge is just to maintain a level of control and maintain a level of integrity during this. I mean, this is as much bullshit as one can imagine. There's no way anybody can enjoy sitting home day after day, not being productive. I mean, you could read books, we can watch TV, we can do all these things. We can work out. I have my gym here. I can watch Westerns, which is my thing. We can really, smoke as many cigars and have, chats with our kids. But the bottom line is Americans are productive. Americans have to be out there, and we have to do our thing. Back in the time of Thomas Jefferson, in 1803, he bought the Louisiana Purchase. And by the time we got to Texas, we got 1836, so it would have been 1842. 1842, and Texas came into the Union, and the Alamo was over and all. We had doubled our size. So in actuality, the progress of the American, you can't maintain it at home. You can't maintain it being immobile. And I think that we're suffering doing this, and that the amount of productivity will be endless once this is over. And the challenge is to just think about that, be creative as you can alone, utilize this time as best you can, and then ultimately just go for it when this is all lifted. And your level of perfection, because you're utilizing the time at home now, it's lockdown nonsense. If you utilize that time, you'll be Cobra Kai by the time it's all over.
That's right. Cobra Kai never dies. That's the saying that'll never go away. sometimes I myself, I root for the bad side because it's cool to do that and all of that. But watching the new series versus Karate Kid Cobra Kai and Johnny making a comeback and trying to be a better person and flaws come out, and then you come into the season, I think by you joining the show, it took it to another level. It was great. It's a wonderful show, but you took it to another level. Do you feel that you entering it was a great idea? You should say yes. I know you're humble, but I think it changed everything, and that's why people are dying to see what's going on next.
We're all dying to see what's going to go on. I mean, I haven't seen all the shows, and I know that everybody's impatient, and I just ask everybody to be patient because, they're making a deal, and it's a big deal, and everybody knows that this is an ideal time to throw that show up on the air. But, I'm just not making the deal and buying the show, so I can't go to the bank and expedite things right now. I can't do that. But to answer your question, they came to me and they said, we want you to come in the last episode of season 1. And I, of course, said, why can't I come in on episode 5, episode 6? And they said, no, because you'll set up season 2. And that's exactly what happened. The amount of people that were so excited about season 2, because I just come in there and say, the real story's only just begun, which is my favorite line. And I come in and I say that, and then they cut, and then you pick up in season 2 with us fighting. And it was terrific, and I always like to play the colors. I don't like to play them always tough and hard. And they wrote me, especially season 3. You're going to love what they did for my character in season 3. I mean, they really do some incredible stuff into my background. And it's really a gas to play the character in depth, to play him soft, to play him charming. And yet, of course, he's always having another agenda than everybody else. He's always like 5 agendas down the road, It's very exciting. It's very exciting season 3 because as an actor, you get to do stuff you haven't done before as that character. I mean, no one thought this character would become the icon that he is. I mean, I love Westerns. I would have loved some Western character that I play that would have rejuvenated the genre. Wish he would have become an icon as well,
But you became this karate icon instead. You have the look to be a huge Western, iconic character. You fit it well, but probably becoming known as a karate master is something that you probably didn't even think. Did you ever think that you would fit in something like this? I know you started acting a long time ago and you played many different roles. This was probably something that just came out of nowhere, like you said, and look what it became today. And it's in the hearts of everyone. There's nobody on the face of this planet that hasn't heard of the Karate Kid. It's like Coca-Cola. It's like Christmas, Santa Claus. And I'm so excited and I'm very happy that you're going to be in the next season, but I'm very happy because they put you in the show. A lot of new recreated shows, they don't bring the original cast, which it's known for. It became famous because of those people. And I'm happy that, Johnny's in it and Daniel's son, Ralph Macchio, and yourself. And where it goes, we don't know. I just want to also tell the fans and the listeners out there to stop bothering you because I know how it is. I've brought in cast members from amazing shows and they're like, please stop messaging me on Instagram because I don't own the show. I'm just an actor. Sometimes I think people disconnect with that and they don't understand that you don't know what's going on. You get a script and sometimes you don't even know when filming starts. But we're really excited to see and know what's going on. Now, I see your Instagram page. You travel a lot. I saw recent travels with your son. You love cigars. Is cigars a pastime, traveling a pastime for you?
Well, I mean, we were just in, London and Paris with my lady friend. And then I took my son to Havana. And
nice.
That was really cool. We went to Havana, went to the Hotel Nacional, where, Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky cultivated in the 30s and 40s and made that the Las Vegas of Cuba. And before Castro came in there, and we went to cigar factories. And it was just something I'd always wanted to do, And they were going to make a No Mercy cigar in the show's changing hands. So I think, Sony told them just to, stop the licensing for, temporarily. But they were making a No Mercy cigar that I was going to be the ambassador of and travel around and do that. But traveling is a lot of fun, and it brings us into it's funny you mentioned that, because on May 16th, since we have so many, conventions canceled, on May 16th, the GalaxyCon Live, it's actually, you can go on the website, it's called galaxyconlive.com. And we're going to do, Billy and Ralph and myself, we're going to do a online Comic-Con where you can literally, you'll go and you can get the instructions from galaxyconlive.com, and you can talk to the three of us. You can talk to each one of us separately. You can get a photograph, signed photograph sent to you, and there are little chat rooms where you can talk to us individually or all together as a panel, and it's very exciting. It's the first time it's been done, and it's on May 16th. And if you go to galaxyconlive.com, people can really get a chance to ask these questions to us, which I hope we have an answer by then. Because to be perfectly honest, we're waiting with bated breath, and we're on it. We're really on it, and it's not like the fans never bore us. I love fans, and God knows, this. I'm so appreciative of our fan base, but we really don't know at this point when it will air. But it'll air soon, and it'll all be handled as it's being handled as we speak, in a bit of a bidding war. So, if anybody would love to chat with Billy, Ralph, or myself, they can call and get this menu on galaxyconlive.com. You would click on Karate Kid, and then it gives you all the different things you can do. Chat with the three of us. The panel is free. Chat with individuals, and you get 2 minutes to talk to us. So, it's like being at a Comic-Con, and you can just ask Martin Kove whatever you like.
What a cool creativity. Yeah, I love that a lot of these conventions are going online, doing live signing sessions. I bet you're probably going to be doing signing sessions as well, and then mailing it out to the fans. I love it. And yeah, we'll make sure everyone goes there and sees all three of you. I'm hoping by then, by the GalaxyCon, you guys can actually go ahead and have some green lights or some stuff from the showrunners. But, if it is, it is. It's not, it's not. But at least the three of you are going to be there, which I feel is some of the most important characters of the new Cobra Kai. I know there's a lot more people, but Ralph, Billy, yourself are going to do wonderful. But moving forward, and I want to talk about conventions. I know you've been to a lot of them. Your first convention, if you want to go back and remember that, how did it feel going to the first convention you ever went to and seeing all those fans line up? And were you shocked? Was it unbelievable for you?
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. A friend of mine, I did a movie called The Last House on the Left ages ago, and a friend of mine, David Hess, who starred in it, they wanted me to play his role, and it was such a violent movie. 1972, I think I was in the business 2 years, and Wes Craven's first movie. And I passed on it, but I brought them someone else named David Hess, who played the lead character, Krug, did the music for the movie. And, I had lived with his sister back in New York when I was doing theater at Lincoln, all throughout my early days on stage. And he said to me, "Why don't you come to this Comic-Con?" I said, "Well, what's a Comic-Con?" He says, "They're having it at the one in New York that's at Chiller, it's called, and it's up at that time. It was it was in New Jersey, I think, but it was basically called the New York Comic-Con, and it was Chiller. It was called the Chiller convention." And I was lined up with the entire cast of Last House on the Left, and none of them sold any pictures. And I brought a little stack of Karate Kid photographs, and they all went immediately. And these people would come up to me with T-shirts. And honest to God, I was totally naive to this. And they would come up to me and say every line that I ever said in the movie. They would wear T-shirts with my face on it. And I just didn't pay attention to this. It was at a time as an actor, you do your job and then you move on to the next project. Yet this was probably 8 years after the movie opened, 10 years after the movie opened, and it was just phenomenal. And I've then realized that how important a decade later this film was to the fans, to kids, to adults, because all of them, didn't matter what the age was. All of the people knew all the lines, loved the characters, and had seen the movie a multitude of times. And then I realized how valuable Karate Kid was, and I felt bad, of course, for the other cast members who did, they weren't very successful that weekend. But the greatest message that I received was how valuable Karate Kid was to society. It didn't reach me until that weekend, where all of a sudden the articulation of the film, the great writing, the characterizations, the expressions of no mercy, sweep the leg, all of it, to me, seemed to all come home then. Because while we're making the movie, it felt like, we didn't even like the title. It was kind of like a Bruce Lee movie. We said, Karate Kid sounds like a Bruce Lee movie. And to me, I was in the middle of doing Cagney and Lacey. So to me, John Kreese was just another heavy. But because of the vision of John Avildsen, God rest his soul, and the vision of the writer, and Jerry Weintraub, who had a vision as the producer, it turned out to be iconic, and one never, ever expects that. Least of all, the realization of the iconism, the realization coming from a little place in New Jersey in a convention center. That's where I realized the massive value of this movie.
It just made sense. And sometimes it takes that. Like you said, you're an actor, you're doing your grind, you're on a wonderful show, then you went on this movie, you're probably feeling a certain way, and then a decade later, you're like, wow. Same thing with Scarface. People didn't realize how a big movie that was till years later. But Karate Kid, it falls in the same line as, to me, to Star Wars, the Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters. It's an iconic thing. It's part of America. Everybody needs to watch it. It teaches a lot of lessons. There's so many life lessons in that movie. I don't know if I'm just saying this because I love the movie and I don't get like this. I get to speak to everyone all the time and movies and this and that. But, this is different. It's amazing. And I know it's amazing for a lot of people. Also, one other person I want to give credit to for Karate Kid, which a lot of people didn't realize that, the referee on Karate Kid, Pat E. Johnson, he played a pretty good role during all those fight scenes and a lot of the choreographing. He's someone that was really cool, that was part of it as well.
Well, he was sensational. I mean, he trained us all separately. Pat Johnson was just my character evolved from Pat Johnson. I used his ki-ites. I used his ki. I used some of the way the positions that he stood with his hand in his belt or his hand. He explained to me why you would have one hand outside your elbow as you're standing there with your elbows crossed, and so you could make a strike. And he'd tell me all these marvelous subtleties. And he trained me alone, trained Pat and Ralph separately, and trained the Cobra Kai separately. So it was always a hello, goodbye in the set, but there was a respect that the Cobra Kai had for John Kreese. It was never a buddy situation off camera. It was always maintaining that respect. I always maintained, I wasn't tough, but I was very rigid in off camera activity. I was the same guy. And it wasn't like Daniel Day-Lewis doing Abe Lincoln, who sustains his character for 6 months. It was just that I knew that's what Pat Johnson would have done, because Pat was the teacher. Pat was the sensei. Pat was really John Kreese. He was more friendlier and kinder because he was an instructor, and he had to train us all for a movie. But if he could have walked into John Kreese's dialogue in a second and just assumed those values of being tough and hard and making sure that there's, no nonsense, no mercy. Mercy is for the weak. Here and on the streets, somebody confronts you, he is your enemy. An enemy deserves no mercy. Those values to myself, who just loves romance and loves westerns and loves historical movies and cries at supermarket openings. That's my essence. So I can jump right back into, as Pat Johnson did. I could jump right back into the killing mode in a second because it's there. It's as strong as the romantic. It's as strong as me. In the last 3 nights, we watched Pirates of the Caribbean 1, 2, and 3. My son and I. And my son Jesse is like my right-hand guy. He and I have done a bunch of movies together, and it's just great, And we watched these movies, and from the beginning to the end, they're just pleasing movies. They're just movies about excitement and escapism, which is why we watched it, And Karate Kid is about escapism, but with a great lesson. You can't really learn a lot from Captain Jack Sparrow, because he's just notorious.
Yeah.
He's untrustworthy. I mean, there isn't, as you watch 3 of those movies in a row, you see what a beast he is. Sure, he's courageous and he's a good warrior and he does all these things, but Jack Sparrow's out for himself, And so you really see it when you watch 3 of them in a row. But, the characters, the value of what you learn from Karate Kid is quite different than what you learn. I think it's even more than what you learn than Star Wars. And it's more, Karate Kid, I think, takes an emotional lesson for its viewers, takes you to a place where that's why it's so successful, because everybody identified with it. You either were bullied when you were a kid, you either had a romance that didn't work, or you were a fish out of water and you were moving around. You had a military family and you were just moving a lot. And everybody identified with that, And years later, I identify with John Kreese more than ever. God knows how many movies I've done where I played a mercenary or a tough guy. And the exciting thing is to sit with these people if they're around and the real life characters you're playing are around. And sit and have a chat with them. It's just brilliant. It's wonderful, And it's, I've chatted with a lot of John Kreeses and they're out there. They're really out there,
Have you ever used John Kreese? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to have John Kreese come out to get out of a situation?
Well, I dare not talk about them too often, but there are times where he comes right up. Someone will say to me, "No, Mr. Kove, you can't have that," or "I can't do it for this price," or "I can't do it for this price," or they'll be unreliable and they say, "Well, I was able to fix the roof, but it's going to cost an extra $500. And I'm watching someone belittle another person. All of a sudden, it comes right up through the center, right through the chest, and it starts in the groin, and it comes up through the chest, and it ends at the eyes. And there's an intensity, and I'll hold the contact with whoever I'm talking to. And they continue saying, "But I can't do that." And blah, blah. And then they look into my eyes and I'm holding, it's like if in society you can pull out your gun and shoot them, like in the Old West, for someone violating you, that look would be the gun barrel. That look would be the trigger just falling down, a hammer falling down on the cylinder, because it's sort of the look of, how dare you just violate me? How dare you say no to something you said yes? Who do you think I am? And it comes right in the look, and I try not to let it happen too often because it's really dangerous. It's really like
I felt it, man. I felt
people,
it.
they don't know what to do. And it happens sometimes at the airport. My girlfriend would just walk away. Because some guy will say, well, you had a first class seat, but now we have to move you over there. Or you were booked. How many times has this happened to you, Galaxy, where you're booked on the aisle and all of a sudden they give you a middle seat, because the plane is overbooked or whatever. And I won't stand for those kind of mistakes. I just won't stand for the obvious ignorant mistakes in life. It's just not my thing as Martin Kove, and certainly not as John Kreese.
Dang.
And
there you go.
I mean, I'm a pussycat and wouldn't bully and wouldn't take advantage of anybody. But honestly, when someone tries to take advantage of me, John Kreese just evolves right to the surface of the problem.
That's it. Everybody needs to be careful. They gotta careful. You have that look, though. I'm gonna tell you that, Martin. You have that look. You have that stare in your photos and images. It's like you're looking through their soul type of stare. Has anybody ever told you that?
Yeah. Well, I try to keep that. For years I said, let's get an 8x10 that's vulnerable, and I've tried. Honest to God, yeah. I have tried. Every time I have a photo session with any photographer, whether it's on a set or it's private, since I started this business 50 years ago, I have never gotten the photograph that I'm looking for, where it's all vulnerable. Like Steve McQueen, Steve McQueen was tough, but he had that vulnerability in his eyes, and Brando is the same thing. There's a vulnerability there that maybe I've gotten depending on the moment, but these cats had it all the time. And whenever they played, whether he played Stanley Kowalski, who was an animal in Streetcar, or Steve McQueen was playing a gunfighter, or he was doing Sand Pebbles or whatever, he always had that vulnerability. And that and the unpredictableness of an actor's eyes. Unpredictable I've got. The vulnerability, it's a tough one. McQueen had it, Newman had it, Brando had it. It's just that little boy quality that comes into the eyes, and I so respect it. I so love it. I don't have it, unfortunately. I act that way at times. I love watching westerns and playing soldiers with my grandson, with little cowboys and Indians and all that, but that wonderful little look of vulnerability. I still search when I do a role where I do enough homework about this character that maybe some of the vulnerability will come out. Because John Kreese doesn't have that vulnerability, He has it towards Johnny Lawrence, because Johnny Lawrence as his son. But that's about it. As far as Daniel LaRusso goes, he liked it just on his larynx.
But it's okay, though. It's okay. It can come when it needs to come, but that look of yours, and then not everybody has that look that you have, that piercing look. Not everybody can do that because they'll look like they're squinting or trying to look mean or mad. It's just like naturally, I stare at your picture and I'm like, okay, move the picture the other way. One of our producers a few months ago, we were looking at Cobra Kai stuff, and I was like, look at that look. We got to get Martin on the show because I want to talk to him about that. I said, that will pierce through a wall and go down the road and pierce through another wall. But that's you, and that's who you are. And, I am so happy that, you're part of this Karate Kid brand and, the whole universe around it, because without you, it wouldn't be the same. Yes, I know Ralph Macchio is a big role and everybody else, but I think your character, I actually know your character is wonderful. When you were on set at Cobra Kai or Karate Kid, what's like one time that really lasts forever in your mind that when you think of it, it just brings everything back?
At the end of, I think it was episode 1, season 2, where I come back, we have a fight and all that, and drop off his trophy, There's 2 moments, actually, that I remember. The first one, chronologically, to speak of, my first rehearsal, when I said their lines. So remember, they've been shooting for 9 episodes. This was the 10th episode. I wasn't allowed to talk about it. I wasn't allowed to tell anybody it was on the show. I wasn't even allowed to leave my hotel room because they were doing all the tournament stuff. and the extras would talk about that my character was coming back. 10th show, the last 5 minutes of the show, I come to the dojo, and their lines are, the last line was, "The real story only just begun." And I have a couple of lines before that. And then all of a sudden, and I walk into the light with a cigar, and I say, "But the real story's only just begun." I was trying to hit the light. I was trying to take the right amount of steps. It was the first rehearsal. I was nervous. The cigar I was smoking wasn't a Cuban cigar, and it was a cheap cigar like they always give you on sets. And it was getting me dizzy. But I just locked in to John Kreese's return to this place and to be with my son, Johnny Lawrence. And I walk in and I take my step and I say the line and I say, "But the real story's only just begun." And I pull the cigar away from my lips. The other side of the room went crazy. The writers were screaming. The cameramen were screaming. It was like, "Oh!" They heard, after all these years, they heard this, and this is what was so bizarre to me. They heard this. They heard Martin Kove, the sensei, that they had, however they put me in their minds, 25 years later, 30 years later, they heard me say the lines that they wrote for me. And these writers were, 2006 is when they first saw the movie. These guys are all 40 years old, but our writers who wrote Harold and Kumar, who wrote Hot Tub Time Machine, they're all brilliant. They got 2 other TV series deals, but they're big fans. This is their Star Wars. So when I said that line, the place went crazy on the other ends of the dojo. And it was the first rehearsal. I didn't even know if I did it right, but I did it right. The second time that's most memorable for me was also in the dojo, in the end of the first episode in the second season, when I'm coming back and I bring Johnny Lawrence his trophy. If you remember in Karate Kid 2, I broke it. And then I bring it back to him fully repaired, and I just give it to him. And the moment I have of love that I played for him, I'm really sorry that I messed things up, but here it is, because I wanted to let him give me a job in the dojo. And he said, "No, you can't. You just can't do that. There's no place for you here. You're not trustworthy." So then at the end of the episode, I bring him this trophy and I say, "Sorry, we couldn't work this out." And, I'm just so full of emotion. And that was extremely memorable for me. And as I walk out the door, he comes after me and he says, "Hold it." And the last moment of that whole episode was John Kreese smiling. And I'll never forget the narration. The last narration in the script was, "John Kreese smiles. Is that a smile of an old man being accepted? Or is it the smile of a masterful manipulator?" That was the last thing that was written in the script.
Dang.
Episode's over. And that moment, it was full for me, for vulnerability and tears in my heart and all that. And then I go out, and I didn't play either way. Honest to God, I think I did the smile 10 times, but I didn't play manipulation. I just played that I wanted to be part of the dojo with Johnny Lawrence. And that's all I was thinking in my work, in my body. And of course, the rest of the world interprets that I'm manipulating myself to get back in the dojo, and I kick him out at the end of season 2. So, but those are the moments I remember. Those are the moments.
I feel you, man. You are a good storyteller. I think you would be a great narrator. I could feel the energy and feel what you're saying right now. You think if Marvel or DC approached you, which one would you choose if they said, "Hey, come on board, be part of our universe"?
Well, I actually enjoy the Avengers a lot. They were the last 2 Avengers were intelligent movies, and they had soul. They had really soul, It's like, the difference between Magnificent Seven with Steve McQueen and Yul Brynner back in 1960, John Sturges directed. That movie had a lot more soul than the one that Denzel did. Not because Denzel and all those people weren't great, and it certainly was a lot more expensive a movie. But it didn't have as much characterization and relationship of the gunfighters together. And I call it soul. And I would have liked to have seen more of that. The action sequences were brilliant. But there's a soul that some of these Marvel comic books characters have lately that are really good. You know, the Russo brothers, they did terrific stuff. I mean, they really did. I just watched Extraction, and they produced that. But these are very talented people. So if I had a chance, I create some character. I mean, they tried to do it with Josh Brolin in that Western character, which I've forgotten his name, 5 years ago. It didn't quite work. It was too dark, you know, but I'd love to do a Western character. The comic book hero called The Adventures of Lieutenant Blueberry. And I screen tested for that. It was a graphic novel, 60s and 70s, in every language in Europe. And I looked just like the guy. Harrison Ford and I looked just like him. And I had a ranch in Agora at 11 acres, and it all burned down to fire in 78. But the casting woman from Paris, she came to meet me because she had seen my picture, and this is 1979. And she comes to the ranch, and I'm cleaning out my ranch, taking garbage to the landfill, right? This is what I'm doing. And it's like an audition. She's coming to see me about this Western because I look just like Lieutenant Blueberry, and they want to make a movie about this in Paris. And ultimately, I ended up going to Paris, doing a screen test. She liked the fact that I was so outdoorsy, which is really fun. I've never taken a casting agent to a landfill in my pickup truck, you know, but it worked. And bottom line is that character is very interesting. It's called The Adventures of Lieutenant Blueberry. It's got a slew of books, graphic novels, all written by Mobius, who was originally Jean Giraud, who did all the artwork for, you know, Alien. And he was brilliant French. He did heavy metal. And Jean-Michel Charlier, they've both passed away. But they were my partners when I tried to raise the money to do a Western here and create a character just like the Marvel characters, because we had never gotten these books in America, but they were popular across the planet, and I still have them. And, you know, ultimately they made a little movie called Renegade with Vincent Cassel, and it wasn't very good. But, you know, I'd like to bring a Western character into Marvel, but an intelligent one, because you can't do Red River anymore. You can't do the movies from the 40s and 50s, the Westerns. The audiences and the kids are too hip, you know. They're too smart. And you really need to make it a sophisticated, interesting character that could hold himself up against, you know, Captain America or any of those characters.
Absolutely.
It's not Superman anymore.
Yeah,
You know?
no, absolutely. I hear you, man. There's so many. I have the Marvel Encyclopedia, and there's thousands of characters in there. I think this should happen. I know there's a lot of people listening that are producers and showrunners and directors. And so if you're listening, Martin Kove wants to make a Marvel Western movie, and, you know, let's look into that. And I think it would be amazing. Martin, is there anything else that you're working on right now that you want to share with the listeners before we start heading out?
Well, there's this wild, crazy, bloody movie that very well received everywhere. It's called VFW. And VFW is with Stephen Lang and let's see who else plays Walter. Stephen Lang does it. It's a movie about the camaraderie is brilliant. It's with Fred Williamson, myself, Stephen Lang, William Sadler, and it's just terrific. It's about the VFW, guys who spend a lot of time there because they were in Vietnam together, and they're besieged by really bad characters that, you know, that want this drug, and this girl has stolen it, and everything takes place in the VFW. And it was so well received, and it's bloody. It's really a bloody movie, but it was so well received because of the camaraderie, because the director let William Sadler and Stephen Lang and myself, and between us, we had 500 movies we had done, and this was the director's third. So, you know, give you an idea. He just let us go, and the improvisation, the camaraderie. We were doing lines from the Wild Bunch, which is my Bible, you know, and it's a great movie. So you can see it on DVD. You can rent it on Prime Video, but it's called VFW, and it's a sellout Blu-ray. I don't know where you get it now, but it just came out, and it's great. And there's another marvelous movie that my son did called D-Day, which is terrific. Also reasonably seen on Prime Video. It's all about D-Day, and my son Jesse Kove stars in it with Nick Cage's son, Weston Cage, and it's a terrific picture called D-Day. It's a real interesting take on the movie, and it's it's not about D-Day per se. It's about this group of soldiers, 200 Rangers, who go to destroy these. It's a real true story about Point du Hoc, where they went to destroy these howitzers that were aimed at our battleships if the Allies attacked that morning in Normandy, because Germans didn't know they were going to attack at all. This thing here is exciting. I hope people tune into this and look at galaxyconlive.com, because it's the first time I've done it, and we'll have a lot of fun. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about.
You're like a walking encyclopedia. You know so much about Western history and world wars and all that, man. So I wanted everyone to hear you, because everybody knows you as, Sensei Kreese and Cobra Kai and Karate Kid and all that, but there's so much more, and an hour's not enough. Hours are not enough, but, it's a little bit into your world. And with that said, Martin, would you like to say anything to the fans before we head out?
Yeah, if you want to communicate with me, find me on Instagram or Twitter, and, I'm there, and you can ask questions and all that, and we try to get back to people. So, there was... we do these other cameos, these little videos we do also to keep us all sane during this time. But just remember, everybody out there, mercy is for the weak, here and on the streets. That's it.
Oh, yeah. That's wonderful. Hey, that gave me goosebumps right there. Ladies and gems, it was so amazing having Mr. Martin Kove on our show today. Check out VFW, amazing movie. He's in it. Also, check out D-Day. It's him, his son, Nicolas Cage's son. A great movie. And check out Season 3 of Cobra Kai coming to a streaming platform near you. More info on that coming soon. And if you want to get a hold of Martin Kove, go to his Instagram page. That's at Martin Kove, MartinKove. This is Galaxy, and we're signing out from another amazing episode of Comic-Con Radio. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And Martin, we got to blow kisses to the universe. 3, 2, 1, a billion kisses to the universe. That's about it. And please send great messages. Stay in touch with Martin. And Martin, you're an amazing gentleman. And with that said, peace.
Peace.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Galaxy signing out from another amazing episode of Comic-Con Radio. Tune in for your daily shows of Comic-Con Radio. Go to comiccon-radio.com. Reach us on social media. Instagram at Comic-Con Radio. Comic-Con Radio, taking the world one listener at a time.
Well, thank you very much, my friend.